ThoorSec and the community. We've just been getting prepared for that, making sure that we have addressed everything in terms of getting prepared there. If you've been following in the dev Discord, there have been various little things that we're just checking and chasing down every detail so that we're ready to start the churning process. And then we'll step through that and hopefully be back to fully operational shortly. In terms of other
conversation with some of the members from the community, and we've talked about protocol and liquidity. Is there anything we can share to the community at this stage?
Yeah, so protocol and liquidity is a really kind of hot topic right now, and we've been kind of talking through mechanisms for protocol and liquidity, and I think that the main piece for us is like trying to figure out how that fits with THORChain and the kind of economic model that THORChain has. So it's not as simple as leveraging existing methods like Ohm or Tok have, but we need to be able to have things align more with THORChain. So I think right now the kind of design is a little bit still being hashed out, and we'll share more shortly. But we want to leverage synths and the work that's been done there in order to facilitate POL for THORChain, and that lets us kind of leverage some of the accounting that synths have built in, and then we'll be able to extend there with POL as the goal.
Can we backtrack a little bit and maybe ask, why is protocol and liquidity going to be important for THORChain and for DeFi?
Sure. So, taking a step back, why does THORChain want to own its own liquidity? The idea with protocol and liquidity is that we would have a rising floor of kind of permanent depth to the pools on THORChain, and that's important because we want to grow the depth of the pools so that we can facilitate larger and larger swap volume and larger trades. So by having a mechanism to grow the depth permanently, we end up being able to facilitate that sooner and faster. The kind of beautiful part about it for me is that once we're able to grow the POL to a certain point, that'll start compounding very quickly, and really suck in as much liquidity as possible, and kind of be a jump starter to the kind of black hole thesis.
So a good result for POL for THORChain is that we will have competitive yield rates. Is that correct?
Yeah. The other thing I want to be very clear on with POL is I think that the kind of current discussion has been around how do we have that be a network native functionality, and that's one side of this, but that doesn't exclude additional protocols leveraging THORChain as well. So like there could be kind of topological protocols that sit on top of THORChain that also grow POL for THORChain and those other protocols.
So that sounds exciting. So we're trying to, again, we've had some chats on Discord, and we want to really push that THORChain is like the base layer. And I think with POL, I think we can really accomplish that. Is that what we're thinking here?
Yeah, exactly. I think that there's it's an important kind of distinction, like THORChain as an L1, and what does that mean? So if you're building on top of a liquidity protocol, there's a lot more functionality that you can facilitate. And I think that's a really kind of a powerful concept, and frankly, something that's has only clicked for me recently.
Okay, so just for those who are joining the THORChain Weekly for the first time, and if you didn't get a chance to get the recap from Runebase, last week 9 Realms talked briefly about the next 100x, and that's exciting because THORChain, we reached over 1,100x in a year. I think we've reached over 1,000% ROI in 1 year. I wanted to ask you, Ryan, was that what's your vision for THORChain's next 100x?
Yeah. So we're the community here. We are all building a massive exchange from the inside out, and that really starts with the THORChain's liquidity network, and then can grow into all of the crypto space. So I think that when we talk about this 100x, that's deeper pools, easier onboarding for users, and other protocols that are leveraging THORChain's liquidity, and then also when we get into synths, faster exchanges with synths and trading, and then also I don't know if folks caught the proposal to have a kind of order book functionality where you can send a swap, but with a height and basically set a price at which you'd like to execute that, and it will stay in the queue for 3 days, so that you can trade it like you might on a centralized exchange. So where that kind of wraps into is, now that we're at the point where the kind of base layer is becoming more and more solid, then we get to start the kind of exponential growth as we can add protocols and other functionality around THORChain to be able to 100x.
Yeah, looking forward to that. We're still early in terms of network ChaosNet. I think we have about 38 or 39 nodes bonded to THORChain. And by mainnet, I think we're aiming to get at least 100. But I wanted to ask, in your opinion, as we continue to grow to 100 nodes, is there a use case for THORChain to go beyond 100 nodes?
I'm not the expert on this, but I think that in terms of validator nodes, I think that there might be a economic security case to have it extend beyond 100. But I think that the YIG nodes or light nodes kind of offer another solution that will let us grow the kind of security of the network in bonded Rune, without having to grow the number of validators beyond 100. And it'll be interesting to kind of see what the appropriate scaling method ends up shaking out to be.
Right, you mentioned security just now, and I know your team has been working with strengthening THORChain and hardening the code. I guess we don't want to take up too much time on this topic, but is there something we can share with the community on what we're finding out in ChaosNet? And I guess maybe just give confidence again to our investors on how secure THORChain is at the moment compared to when it was in summer.
Yeah. So I think it's an interesting comparison. If we think about, what the security posture of the network was just a few months ago versus where it is now, it's a pretty stark contrast. Now there's just off the top of my head, 15 or 16 people dedicated towards looking at THORChain security. There's been a really awesome response in the community as various alerts fire for folks to dig into, what's going on. And, we're like kind of getting back to what I was talking about a little earlier. We're building a, tier one exchange here. And, tier one exchanges have teams that follow the sun and are responsible for security, 24/7. And we're starting to see that materialize. But I'd also say, if you're interested in helping out on that front, please get in touch, because the more folks that we have looking at things, the better.
Okay. Well, all right, thanks for the updates. Where can people learn more about THORChain, or where do you recommend them to learn more? And maybe if they'd like to contribute, what can they do?
Yeah. So at this point, there's a lot of great resources. If you're interested in learning more about THORChain, I'd recommend checking out the LP University Discord. Also, Thor Starter has a great Discord and very helpful folks there. And then I'd also recommend checking out Grassroots Crypto's YouTube channel for some introductions. Then, if you're interested in participating as a community member or developer, the THORChain dev Discord is a great place to get started. And my DMs on Discord are always open, so happy to chat with folks and help you find a place where you can make an impact.
All right, thank you, Ryan. Next, I wanted to bring to the stage the MetaGuardians team. So who's speaking from the MetaGuardians team today?
I believe both of us. Right now, hi. I believe me and my brother Antubel. My name is Bernal Moreda, and I'm in charge of executive production. And today I'm together with Antubel Moreda, who is our lead game designer.
Could you give our audience a quick introduction of MetaGuardians?
Yeah, I can go ahead if you don't mind. My name is Antubel Moreda. I'm the lead designer in MetaGuardians. MetaGuardians is a expanding universe of video game and metaverse collectibles. We are a relatively new project. We only started a few months ago. Our first collection came out in early September, just about a month and a half ago. And we are currently launching our second collection, the Villains. First, we launched the Guardians. Now we are launching the Villains. Currently, Guardian owners are claiming the Villains in exclusive mint, but we have a public mint coming up this weekend.
So when you launched the first time, it was about the heroes, and this time you have a different type of launch. Oh, you're releasing some more types of NFTs. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, we are building this universe. So we are launching a new collection every season. Currently, we are having a season every 7 weeks. The first collection were the heroes. They are there to protect the metaverse. If you have seen the designs, basically, they are inspired by blockchain projects. We are huge fans of blockchain and different projects, including THORChain. We have some Rune Guardians in the collection. And yeah, now we are launching the Villains. These two are like the top characters of our ecosystem, and they will be the top characters in the game. And they have some benefits as well in our in MetaGuardians. So beyond the game, we are launching metaverse content, metaverse avatars, Decentraland wearables. We plan to make some land purchases in the future. So that's the metaverse component of the project. And we also have some other benefits, like we are launching staking on our website next month. So you'll be able to stake your NFTs and earn rewards. And of course, people who own the Guardians and the Villains and the other collections, they have the commercial rights to use these characters in whatever work they want. Not only that, but we also provide a creator pack with high-resolution images, 3D models, basically materials for owners to use those commercial rights.
Thanks for sharing the updates. I think people might have not seen on Twitter that you made an announcement. Could you tell us about that THORChain trait? on the villains.
Yeah, I can go ahead. Well, basically, the THORChain, as Antubel explained, we are huge fans of blockchain. Not only huge fans, but we've been supporting blockchain for many years. We believe in the tech, and we like to make tribute to every project we consider is important or has impact within blockchain, right? So Antubel has always been a fan of THORChain community. Uh, he even owns some room, so we decided to bring tribute to the THORChain community with this exclusive trade on Villains collection. That doesn't mean you are the villains, but the lucky helmet looks pretty cool.
Okay, so where can people find out more about your project, MetaGuardians, and how, if people can get involved, what can they do?
Well, our Discord is pretty much active 24 hours. We really care a lot about our community. We are always improving our Discord system and integrating different ways to interact with the community. We innovated on how Discord interacts with their communities by being the first of designing a system of rewards based on experience that you earn on our Discord, and we continued developing that part of the Discord. I think is pretty good to jumping into our Discord. Besides that, we have a lot of new information because we did a huge rework on the website. Now, all the perks of the collections are explained and how they work. Like we are having 3 memberships, which are platinum, gold, and silver, and how the collections work between themselves, how the collections work within the game as well. And we updated, we did a huge update related to the roadmap as well. So if you jump in our website, you can find a lot of information about our project. And if you are interested, you can also jump into our Discord, where we have pretty much always almost every guardian in there active, and you can always ask them whatever you feel you need to know. And we are and we ourselves are there to to answer questions as well.
All right, thank you. So that was MetaGuardians. Follow them on Twitter, get in their Discord if you can. And yeah, looking forward to the launch of their NFTs and the THORChain traits on their villains and maybe their heroes. Thank you guys. So next
Thank you.
we have Chad. Chad, thanks for joining us. And yeah, what have you been up to?
What have I been up to? Shipping code and getting the network restarted. And today it's just been looking into some math on the impermanent lock protection stuff, which turned out to be not as big a deal as we thought it was at first thought. So I'm probably going to be re-enabling LP actions pretty soon, I think.
You participated in a conference recently. Were there any new learnings from there that we can think about and adapt for THORChain, or maybe share some of your experiences from that conference?
Yeah, the conference was interesting. I just did one in London a couple weeks ago, and I did a panel conversation about building DeFi protocols, and there was a lot of it was a really big response from the audience, especially after the talk. Like a lot of people kind of pulled me aside and wanted to ask me questions about THORChain and like the project and all these things. And so there was a really, really strong response from the community there at the conference. I was really happy to see.
Yeah, so earlier Orion spoke about some of the security and scaling that we were hoping to see with THORChain. Was wondering how about from your perspective, what can the community look forward to if they're just investors, and also maybe on the dev side, what things will open up for THORChain in the next coming months?
Yeah, so the immediate future is trying to get the network churned. We're going to start sharding Asgards, which will probably happen in the second churn after the next. So the network will split Asgards into 2 different Asgards as we allow us to scale up to more nodes on the network, which is really positive for the project. Synthetics is probably going to be the first thing we'll probably get deployed for new features to the community. That's being worked on. We're working also on order books. Is kind of a newer thing that was relatively easy to implement on THORChain. So you'll be able to make a swap, but specify the price you want to get, and the network will hold on to those funds and then swap it when it has the opportunity to. It would only work for synthetics and native assets, so like from Rune or synthetics to another asset. So it doesn't work with layer 1 assets on external chains, but it does work with synthetics and other assets. That's one thing. Probably going to start working pretty soon on protocol owned liquidity in the next week or 2. So that gives the ability for the network to own part of the pools, and we have a kind of an interesting novel design of how that can function. And the Rune actually that the network contributes to these pools will be dynamically flow between pools as it needs to, depending upon depth of those pools changing over time. So the network will naturally support pools that are deep and useful to the community, and not so much the illiquid and smaller pools, and it just more concentrates liquidity in a more beneficial way, which is pretty interesting. And one of the fascinating things about this is it actually is counter to synthetics, right? Because synthetics is putting a lot of pressure on one asset in the pool, which is like the asset side. But then this protocol on liquidity creates, in effect, it's a synthetic Rune on the Rune side of all the pools. So they eventually actually create a harmony between those 2 different assets and balancing on top of the liquidity pools of the network. It's really kind of a fascinating concept. So actually it would allow us hypothetically to draw up the amount of synthetics on the network on each individual pool as a higher percentage, depending upon how much protocol on liquidity that the network holds for Rune in a particular pool. So it really kind of raised the synthetic cap in a sense on the network, which is really, really cool. The economics for that is pretty fascinating, actually. Those are the 2 things or 3 things in the near future over the next maybe a month or 2 that I think we'll see on the network. And then of course we're shooting for mainnet at the end of the year. So hopefully by 2022 we'll be ditching the ChaosNet brand and moving towards mainnet. We're really looking for 30 days of really good solid operation, no significant bugs or issues. We're going to add a bunch of chains, like Doge, Dash, Decred, Monero, possibly, maybe not. That one's tough. Zcash is pretty easy. That could happen possibly. We already have people from 9 Realms working on Atom and Luna, as well as UST. Those would be huge contributions. And I love that concept because it's actually going to pull other communities into the THORChain community. So we're going to adopt Dogecoin, for example, and the Dogecoin community is likely going to respond well to the THORChain community. And those kind of communities will kind of merge to some degree, which is really positive for our own community. It's really going to really a bullish sign in a sense. So I'm super excited about that.
When we talk about stints here, maybe a question for me, and I've heard some other people ask it too, but are we thinking about stints on major blockchains, or more so all the tokens that are available on THORChain? Could you give us some insight on that?
Yeah, the synthetic code has no preference to assets, so it treats every asset the same. So any pool that exists on THORChain that is an available pool that you can trade and swap on is a pool where you can mint and burn synthetic assets in that pool. There'll be a cap in the beginning when we first launch it to be probably around 5% of the pool depth. We don't want to go too hard too fast and let a smaller amount of liquidity at risk in the very beginning, just to make sure everything works the way we think it was. But yeah, it'll be available on any and every asset on the THORChain network.
That's exciting. How about recently we've seen another meme token like SHIB break through the top 15. I think broke through the top 10 recently. Been thinking about a synth version of THORChain. What's your thought on that?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, and people can correct me if I am, but SHIB, as I'm assuming, is a fork of Doge. And if that's the case, then adding SHIB is actually quite easy because the code already works. You just gotta, it's literally a copy and paste. Actually, it's actually not that hard to do. Most of the work is actually in testing than it is actually in coding, right? Like the code itself is already written. The test is what takes probably most time in the infrastructure to build the Kubernetes aspects to it, so you can run and build a full node of SHIB and all this kind of stuff. But it's pretty low weight and it's easy to add. The community just needs to take into account the security concerns, right? What is the hash power? What are the risks of adding this chain to the network? Does it pose some kind of security issues or attack surface that we have to be considerate of? So it's a kind of a question that each validator of the network has to kind of wrestle with and figure out answer for themselves. But all these things need to be looked into. All these things need to be audited. All these things need to be have a strong look at them before we just throw them on the network. We don't want to do anything haphazardly here.
Last week we spoke about the next 100x for THORChain. Nine Realms talked about how we're in a good position now to scale and grow THORChain, not just from the dev side, but also from the community aspect and more tools opening up for people to build on THORChain. I wanted to ask you, from your perspective, what's THORChain's next 100x?
100x. 100x can be thought of in a few different ways. I think you can think about it as a few different ways. So one way is think about the expansion of chain support. So you can go from you can 100x based upon that, just because not so much because the assets that you're adding are worth a lot, but just it creates more community awareness and it creates more. It's kind of like a form of of marketing in some sense, and so it creates the more awareness of the project and adoption of the project, and you're gonna have more trades, more swaps, all this stuff, kind of more volume passing through the network, and by doing so, it easily can grow the TVL. Not even just the act of, this is a funny thing, the act of adding something like SHIB, right, which has a market cap of things like 15 billion or 30 billion or something like this. It's really not a lot of money. It sounds like a lot of money, but it's really not. But the act of doing that, you actually will probably increase your swaps on Bitcoin and your transactions on and your liquidity of Ethereum. It actually adds to all the chains in a sense. So that can really create a 100x scenario. The other way you can think about it is THORFi and how THORFi can create 100x, because there are things that we're doing on this project that nobody else is doing quite yet. Well, certainly not in the way that we are. Where they properly support layer 1 assets. Everything else in the space, almost everything else, with a couple of exceptions, is doing wrapped and pegged assets. But being able to do layer 1's lending, for example, that is cross-chain. That is ginormous. That's some of the biggest DeFi protocols in the world right now in terms of TVL is lending, right? And if you have lending where you can support, instead of 25% of the liquidity of crypto, which is what ETH is with plus ERC20s, you can support 95% or 90%, which is basically where we're at right now, even with the 5 chains we support today. So that can easily create a 100x scenario, right? And then on top of that, the third way you can think about it is mass adoption from not just retail swappers, but you can have mass adoption on the wallet integration side, which will create a massive amount of swaps and trade volume and liquidity. You can create connections with like exchanges that exist today, like centralized exchanges, like Binance or Coinbase, or Shapeshift's a perfect example because I did that literally day one, and that can create a massive amount of trades and adding liquidity to the network. Those things by themselves can also create like 100x easily. I mean, if you look at like Binance and Coinbase, like the amount of Bitcoin that these exchanges have is like it's like stupidly insane how much they have, and all that is just like basically dead capital, right? It just sits there and does absolutely nothing. But then you can turn that into productive capital and actually earn interest on those things is pretty powerful. So you can easily get to a place where you can have a massive amount of funds going into these pools with the right adoption, right? And the community is probably doing that better than myself or anybody else in part of the core team is getting out that adoption. I mean, getting people to be aware of the project and tweeting, talking about it, blogging about it, podcasting about it, doing NFTs, like all these like things that everybody's doing in the community is like that's creating awareness, which has a significant effect on the project and the adoption of the network and the rune price and like all these things.
Just briefly, you mentioned how Shapeshift pivoted from their model and have integrated THORChain. And we've seen a lot on Twitter. People are saying you should just use THORChain. And I know we have a lot of new followers on our community in our THORChain Twitter account. But maybe could you elaborate a little bit about what did Shapeshift do to work with THORChain and to pivot their business model?
Yeah, so Shapeshift is turning into a DAO, as people might be aware of, but their business model is, it seems like to me, from my layman's perspective, that they're basically going to be a DEX aggregator, right? And so they're going to support THORChain, they're going to support Sushi and Uni and other DEXs in different ecosystems, and they'll try to find you the best price for whatever transaction you're trying to do, right? And for right now, like for assets like Bitcoin, we're the only ones in the Shapeshift system that would allow you to do so. Maybe that'll change in a year, but for right now, we're the only kind of choice in a sense. They could start charging affiliate fees on their swaps for themselves. And I've actually spoken to them about this idea of like, which is very similar to what THORSwap's going to be doing, which is you can charge for swaps with an affiliate fees, and then with a new feature that we're going to be adding in the future, you'll be able to select the asset that you want to collect as a payment in the affiliate fee. So it might be Thor token for THORSwap, it might be Fox token for Shapeshift, and so the network will just naturally, at every swap coming through, it'll just buy up Fox token or Thor token out of liquidity pools and send it back to the Fox DAO or the THORSwap smart contract or whatever, and use that as yield for any Thor holders or Fox holders or whatever. Like that is actually a really interesting concept because there's almost no way historically for a UI to make money in this space, right? The closest thing you had is like running ads, which is it's a Web 2.0 mentality. It doesn't actually it's actually unnecessary in the Web 3 world. But there was no economics to provide a UI to make income, and that's now basically been changed with THORChain and affiliate fees. So now all these UIs can actually fund their project and pay their developers and their marketing people and whatever else with THORChain. Like the economics are there to allow that kind of thing. So that's going to create like a massive adoption on its own. Like at least I think that.
So you mentioned Shapeshift being a DEX aggregator, and THORChain is one of the things that are integrated. Maybe in your opinion, what can others like sexes do? Or how can, for example, in the case of Binance, they don't have a US entity because of regulations, but just as an example, not saying that they will, and I'm not saying that there's a there's a partnership in place at the moment. But in the case of Binance, if they were going to integrate THORChain, what would that mean for their users?
Well, I don't think it means much for their users in the sense that they're still going to be KYC and they're still going to go through the same, processes as they had before. I think maybe the difference is that maybe Binance can now allow basically staking, right? So you can send your Bitcoin into Binance, and Binance will put it into THORChain for you, and they'll take a chunk for themselves and then give you the remainder, so that gives you kind of a nice UI, I suppose. And if that were to happen, that would be huge, because obviously Binance is like the biggest centralized exchange in the world, and they have a lot of users who sign up every day and use their website and use their UI, and all of a sudden this little menu item is going to say, "Hey, earn Bitcoin on your Bitcoin," and that'll interest a lot of people, obviously, right? Like that's obviously an interesting concept. I mean, BlockFi, almost entire business model is based upon interest accounts, right? And that's basically what this is. I think it'd be pretty significant for the community, for the project, if Binance were to adopt THORChain as a means of swapping, allowing them to have less need for on-hand liquidity than they needed before, but also being able to produce yield for their users and have better retention. It's going to be hard for centralized entities in the future to operate eventually, because it's just going to be like, well, I can earn 20% on Binance, but I can earn 40% on THORChain directly. So why wouldn't I just use that? And in the beginning, it's going to make sense because of the cleaner, nicer UIs and corporate entities and marketing and all these things that we all kind of know about, historically speaking. But in the long term, you will never win out over open source free code, because it's cheaper, more hardened, and available to every man, woman, and child on this planet. Which is significant.
Just maybe one last question, because I'm conscious of time. You, in the conference that you participated in recently, you talked about smart contracts. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit on that? Because I wasn't sure if you meant smart contracts in general, or was it a smart contracts for THORChain?
So my comment there was that I actually don't like smart contracts for DeFi specifically, because of the DeFi conversation that was. But using smart contracts for DeFi doesn't make a whole lot of sense for long-term, serious protocols. It's great because you get to write a small bit of code and deploy it in a weekend, and then have actual money on it, and see how your economics works, see how the protocol functions, all this kind of stuff. And I can talk more about how Solidity has significant security related issues, considering almost literally every single DeFi protocol has been exploited. Pretty much every single one of them, which insinuates there's a problem with Solidity itself in terms of how it's designed. But if you want to have a serious DeFi protocol, like if you wanted to be a serious computer manufacturer today, you couldn't do that and only service like Japan, right? Like it would be a niche product that a few people use, but most of the world wouldn't use it because you only sold this computer in Japan, right? And this is effectively the same thing when we're talking about like smart contracts, right? Because smart contracts beholden you into a specific ecosystem, like Japan in this example, and you don't have access to the rest of the space. And so, really, from a model perspective, you are setting yourself up to be pigeonholed into a specific ecosystem that will only have a very small fragment of the liquidity of crypto, which means it'll be a small fragment of liquidity in your application, and trade volume and all these things will be relatively very small. Yeah, and so it doesn't make a lot of sense in that regard. You want to have access to the entire. If you want to sell a computer, you want to sell it to all the markets, the Asian market, the Western markets, the African markets, all the markets of the world, because that's why you're going to have mass adoption and be highly successful as a computer manufacturer, right? smart contracts only exist because it was our only method of building apps in the blockchain space a couple of years ago. Like there wasn't like the actual process of building your own blockchain from scratch is actually like extremely difficult, and very few people can actually build it. Like it's actually very complex. It's arguably one of the most complex things to do in computer science, right up there with artificial intelligence. And so very few engineers actually have the deep skill set to actually do that. And so, but to build a smart contract, like that's much lower bar. It's a lot easier to do, a lot less to reason about. You don't have to worry about consensus or cryptography or like anything. All that stuff is abstracted away for you, which makes it a lot easier to build apps, you know. But I mean, smart contracts have purpose. Like NFT is a good use case for smart contracts and other things. I would just say in the DeFi space, where you're trying to get liquidity from all these different markets and all these different ecosystems, it doesn't make so much sense, other than for like sandboxing, architect, prototyping, and like testing out new ideas and concepts and see how they fare and see how they stand up to actual economics and people using them and that kind of stuff. But once you get to a certain place where you've proven that a model works, like even just take something like, you know, like Aave or Compound, right? Those models work. They do very, very well, right? And they're very stable. They're continuously making income. You know, they're sustainable systems that people kind of enjoy and use. But like all it takes is somebody to build a Compound or an Aave that is like cross chain, and all of a sudden you've like, you know, 4x your liquidity overnight, and you're servicing entire ecosystems that never even seen the light of day in the context of DeFi, and that's going to be obviously explosive, right? I mean, there's a lot of people in the world who use you know, MakerDAO's DAI to 3x long their position on Ethereum via, you know, locking up some ETH and getting some DAI, and then trading that DAI for ETH, and then locking out that ETH and getting some more DAI, then trading that DAI for Ethereum. And so then 3x longing your position on Ethereum because they're ETH heads, you know what I mean? They're you know, ETH maxis or just ETH fans, whatever. And how many people are Bitcoin fans? Huge proportion of people are Bitcoin fans. So how many Bitcoin fans want to be, you know, 3x long the position on Bitcoin? Yeah, a fuck ton. It'll make MakerDAO seem like rather quaint, right? Because all of a sudden you can 3x long position on Bitcoin in a decentralized way. That's pretty game changing. That's very game changing, in fact. So yeah, smart contracts can't do that. Not in a way that actually economically makes sense. You can do it if you want to, with like Ren BDC or WBDC or something like this. But those bridges are inherently designed in a way that cannot be economically secured. It requires either there to be trust, like WBDC does, or it requires the actually, no. The only way we can do is trust. The only way we can actually do it, you can be like Ren BDC and just run all the nodes yourself, right? Like the team runs all the nodes. That requires trust, right? So you trust that they won't take all the Bitcoin, which they haven't, to be fair. Like it's good product, smart people over there, but that bridge is designed to require trust, and so I don't see that in the long term. I don't think it's going to be what people want. You know, even Cosmos IPC uses trust, not to just trust. Excuse me, it uses pegged assets in order to accomplish what it's accomplishing, and it requires that it's more difficult to attack it economically than something like a, you know, Ren or WBDC for sure. But it's still, you have an uncapped, unbounded relationship between the security of the network and the assets that it secures, and so it's very easy and very quickly, the assets that it secures can be worth a lot more than the security of the network, and in which case it's now economically profitable to cyber attack that network and walk away with $10 billion. I think that'll happen eventually at some point. Some, you know, rich asshole will probably do that kind of attack on some network, especially in the lower cap ones. Less likely on something like Gravity Dex, because the cap's going to be really high, but still, it's very well possible, and it's very well likely to happen. I won't bet my money on that, and then put my money into a system that makes sense to steal from. I would do that personally, especially if the economics are already proven to be there. Yeah.
Okay, well, I didn't expect that response about smart contracts, but yeah, I do resonate with a lot of what you said, and a lot of the things that are preventing DeFi from expanding or getting mass adoption is trust-centric systems, and I think that's definitely a speed bump or a barrier for DeFi to break through. Just lastly, before we bring on ThorGuards to give us an update on their progress, was there anything you had did you have any updates for the community for the next couple of weeks, for the next couple of months that's coming up on THORChain?
Yeah, just stay tuned. We're getting the network churning pretty soon. Thor IDO is coming very soon. Synthetic is coming very soon. Hopefully, order books will be landing in the next couple weeks or so, 2 to 4 weeks. Portfolio liquidity probably hopefully in a month, maybe 2. Cosmos and Terra coming. All like lots of things coming in the next 2-3 months. It's gonna be kind of an explosive end to the year for sure.
Thank you, Chad. All right, ThorGuards, who have we got today?
Hey everyone, it's Jordan here from ThorGuards. Just wanted to come in and give a quick update on our progress, what we've been up to for the week. So if you guys don't know what ThorGuards is, we're a THORChain ecosystem NFT project that has partnered with many of the platforms that have built on THORChain. So for example, like THORSwap and THORStarter. We're currently making good progress on our artwork and our development, but this week we're really focused on bolstering our community. So we released our ecosystem-wide Easter egg hunt where all of our partners got involved. There's, I believe, 16 or 17 different partners where we hidden little Easter eggs on their websites, their Telegrams, their Discords. So if you go around and try to find them, you could earn like a whitelisting pass. And if you could find 15 of them, you could get a free NFT. If you could find all of them, you could get 2 free NFTs. And each of our partners have 3 different Easter eggs on their platforms. So in total, there's going to be around 48 different Easter eggs that you got to find. But it's a fun hunt. So I encourage you all to try to go in and try to find them all. Other than that, we also released our guard pass. So if you go check out our website, we have THORGuards.com/guardpass. We have a page where we list all of our partners and we talk about the different utilities that we're going to offer with your THORGuards.
All right. Is this information available on Twitter, website? Where can people get more information about this ecosystem-wide Easter egg hunt?
Yeah, so we have an announcement on our Discord and on Twitter. You could go check that out. We have a Medium page as well where it goes into more detail of all the rules and explains the prizes and all of that, and where you can find all of our different partners. So all of that is going to be on Discord and on Twitter. Oh yeah,
Okay.
and the announcement is on Runebase as well if you prefer Runebase over the THORGuards Medium.
All right. Thank you, ThorGuards. Lastly, we'll just bring back Orion because we forgot to mention about another community-led project. Orion, could you share with the community what we're working on?
Yeah. Hi again, everybody. Just wanted to close things out a little bit by sharing some work that the community has been doing with Flipside Crypto. They're a kind of crypto analytics firm. You can kind of imagine that they provide dune analytics service for the rest of crypto, not just ETH. And anyway, you should check out flipsidecrypto.com and sign up for an account, and then you'll be able to query the kind of tables behind Midgard and be able to inspect and learn more about what's happening on chain. The idea here was to make THORChain data more accessible to the community. And yeah, we've been working closely with them in order to facilitate that. They are offering a bounty program right now where you're able to solve different problems and then submit your queries or plots to them and then get rewarded in Rune. So it's a really exciting collaboration, and yeah, super excited to see what comes out of the community from there.
If I'm able to add something to that, I want to really encourage the community, especially those who have SQL, SQL skills, but also think about it from a data storytelling perspective and how we can make the THORChain data more accessible to more people by how we tell the story with data. I've been going through the tables myself, and I know a little bit about SQL, so it's quite exciting to see this community-led project.
Yeah.
I think this is all I have for this week. The next weekly will be US-centric time, and I think we'll have more updates on the THORChain community Twitter account. Just quick announcements from the team. So XDeFi said they're going cross-chain already with going on Terra. Also with THORStarter, they announced recently that they're working with Olympus DAO, and they've launched on Olympus Pro. They're also going cross-chain and working with Terra. We all know what's coming up next week with THORSwap and their IDO. So make sure everyone you're checking the official website, and if you're in Telegram, make sure that the channel that you're in is not a spam group. And be safe, be safe out there. And yeah, have a nice Friday. It's Friday here in Japan. Have a nice Thursday evening wherever you are, and yeah, have a good day. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
All right.